Hey everybody, so it's time to continue along with my most interesting series here where I'm looking at teams that I think are the most interesting teams to watch this coming season in 2021-22. And today we're going to be talking about the New York Rangers, who have certainly been one of the most talked about teams this offseason and definitely has had one of the most interesting off seasons out of any team this year. Before we get into it, I just ask you to please subscribe and hit that thumbs up. It helps out so much and is greatly appreciated. But the Rangers, obviously a very young, talented team that we've kind of been waiting for to take that next step over the last couple of seasons and to get back into being a playoff level team. There's a lot of pressure on the Rangers to make the playoffs this year. A lot of people thought that they had a chance to do it last season. They ended up coming up a little bit short. So they're really looking for this to be the year that they get back into the postseason. And they've made some moves this offseason. There's certainly been a common theme to the moves that they made, or at least most of them. This is a team that has gotten significantly tougher. This team has added grit. We all know what happened last year with Tom Wilson and Artemi Panarin, and it seems like that fundamentally changed the philosophy of the New York Rangers going forward from that point on, and they have made a concerted effort this offseason to get tougher and add grit, and it's going to be really interesting to see if that old school approach is good enough to get the Rangers into the playoffs, or if they maybe have veered a little bit off course here with what direction they've decided to go in. So let's take a look at their major additions and subtractions this offseason. Their big signing was Barclay Goodrow, coming in from the defending Stanley Cup champion Tampa Bay Lightning, part of that fantastic third line for the Lightning for the past 2 years with Coleman and Yanni Gourde. Goodrow gets a big deal from the Rangers, a 6-year deal over $3.5 million per year, and obviously exactly the kind of player that the Rangers were looking to add. Tough guy, can drop the gloves, loves to hit, physical along the wall, goes to the net. We'll see what he has for offensive upside. I think, he's obviously going to be looked to bring a little bit more offense to the table in New York than what he did in Tampa Bay, especially with the contract that he's on. But this is going to be really interesting to see how this works out with Goodrow getting the kind of contract that he did in New York. I can't say I like the prospects of it working out great long term, like years 4, 5, and 6 of this deal, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's not going to be a really good addition right now, and I'm very interested to see what he looks like as a Ranger this coming season. They also added defenseman Patrick Nemeth coming into their D-core. As when we get to the subtraction sides, we'll see that they kind of lost some of their depth defensemen. Nemeth comes in as a pretty solid bottom pair type guy, can be a number 7, veteran guy, kind of a depth pickup there. They also brought in right wing Sammy Blais. He was part of a trade with the St. Louis Blues that we'll talk about when we get to the subtraction side even more. But Sammy Blais comes in, and he's kind of like a third-line level right winger. And he does bring some physicality, not to the level of a guy like Barclay Goodrow, but he can bang along the wall and bring that as well. And then they also traded for forward Ryan Reeves, who probably the best fighter remaining in the NHL, a real true enforcer, which there aren't many left, obviously coming in from Vegas. And they signed him to a contract extension for the year after this coming season. So they've really gone all in on getting tougher. They brought in Jarred Tinordi as well, who's a depth defenseman, played with the Predators and the Boston Bruins last year. He got picked up on waivers by Boston and ended up playing a good number of games for them because of the injuries that they had on the back end. Now, Tinordi in no way should be in their top 6 on D, but he is kind of like a 7th, 8th D-man that certainly brings toughness, and you can plug into the lineup if need be. if a certain player on the other team needs to be dealt with. And again, very, seemingly direct response to what happened between Tom Wilson and Artemi Panarin last season. So you can obviously see in their additions the emphasis on toughness, particularly with Gaudreau, Reeves, and Tenorti. This team has made a very clear effort to add those gritty, tough kind of players. And again, it's going to be interesting to see if that old school approach really, does help this team, or if this might be a little bit of a grasp to try and answer for something that they, should have been able to answer for last year, and they might be overcompensating a little bit now. That remains to be seen with how they play this season. As far as subtractions go, it was mostly depth, but there was one big one, and that is Pavel Buchnevich. He was traded to St. Louis in the deal that brought Sammy Blais to New York, and this is absolutely a loss for the Rangers. I mean, Buchnevich is a clear top six winger, can put up some very good point totals, had a very good offensive year last year, and I really think is going to shine in St. Louis and bring some much-needed offense to the Blues. And that there's no doubt about it. That is definitely a loss for the Rangers. Now, they would have had trouble salary cap-wise paying Pavel Buchnevich. He was an RFA and got a very big contract from St. Louis. So I think, where they were at money-wise might have, certainly played a role in why Buchnevich was traded. But there's no doubt that is a loss out of their top six in that lineup. The rest of the guys are all pretty much depth guys. Brendan Smith played a, important top six role on the D side of things last year, but he is no longer there. Obviously, we all know what happened with Tony DeAngelo. He barely even played last season. He's officially gone now. Jack Johnson's gone, another depth guy. And forward, Phil DiGiuseppe, another depth guy, out of the Rangers organization and moved on. So again, as you can see, Buchnevich was the big loss. And then as far as their additions go, it was really an emphasis on toughness and getting grittier and getting tougher to play against. And again, I think that's, that approach is what makes the Rangers so interesting, is that their big additions were adding grit and not, adding really more talent. It was more about adding grit and toughness. So I think the New York Rangers are going to be an extremely fun team to watch next year. I'm very excited to watch Rangers games next year. Obviously, we know about the high-end talent that they have with guys like Zibanejad and Panarin. We know about the young talent that they have with, guys like Lafreniere and Capo Caco and Adam Fox on the back end, Shesterkin in goal. Now it's about putting it all together, and now they've added in the toughness element, which was really lacking last year. They brought in Gaudreau, they brought in Reeves, they brought in Tenorti, and now they've added that element. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this all comes together, what the Rangers look like next year, and if they're able to take that next step, because the expectation is that the New York Rangers make the playoffs this coming season. They were close last year. They just quite weren't ready yet. Now it's time to take that step. And if they can't take that step, there's going to be a lot of questions about what they did this offseason and if this wasn't a step back for the Rangers. Whereas if they do make the playoffs and they are a better team this year, it's going to shut up the people that are questioning these moves. Clearly, it's going to help the team. And it's going to be fun to see them if they do make the playoffs, because I can't wait to see some of these players in the postseason, especially the first time that this Rangers team has been in the postseason in a few years. It'd be the first time that Panarin and Zibanejad play together in the playoffs. It'd be the first time that Adam Fox plays in the playoffs. It'd be taking away the qualifying round of 2020, but that to me really doesn't count as the playoffs. Even though technically it was the playoffs, it really wasn't. And they got absolutely smoked. They got absolutely smoked by the Carolina Hurricanes in that qualifier. So to me, that wasn't really making the playoffs. And this team needs to take that next step and really make the playoffs. Be a top team in the East. Make it into the the top 8, into the playoff spots, and qualify this year. So again, Rangers, really interesting team in my opinion. I'm really interested to see how this old school approach goes. Knowing you guys that know me, I'm a huge fan of old school hockey and physicality and toughness and all of that. So I hope it goes well. I'm going to really enjoy watching the Rangers this year. I think they're going to be a great team to watch and just follow and catch as many of their games as I can. But it's going to be interesting to see if that equates to wins or if they're still kind of in the same spot that they've been the past couple of years. So with that, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our Patreon, merchandise store, donation link, and channel memberships are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll talk to you guys soon.